The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I want to say good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast or Central Time, maybe good morning to those on the West Coast. My name is John Horn, and I want to start by thanking you for joining us for this impromptu webinar on Google Enhanced Campaigns. For those that aren't familiar, a few months ago, Google announced some pretty significant changes to their paid search campaign structure, and over the past few months have been talking with or encouraging people to upgrade and have set a deadline of July 22nd on which they're going to begin forcibly upgrading all paid search campaigns to this new format. We've been working with it for quite a while and thought that it might be helpful for those of you managing campaigns in the industry to learn a little bit more about what the features are in these enhanced campaigns, how to upgrade to them, and what some of the benefits and cautionary aspects of the new campaigns are. So thank you again for joining us. I will mention as we get started that we're hopefully recording this session, so if you have colleagues or want to just go back and rewatch any portion of this, we'll send out a link, assuming we don't have any technical difficulties with the recording. We'll send out a link in the next few days to a recording of the session. Other thing I wanted to do is just very quickly make sure that everyone can hear me. On your GoToWebinar account panel, you should see a little spot where you can click to raise your hand. And if you don't mind just clicking that little icon of the hand to let me know that you can hear me okay, that will make sure that I'm not just speaking to no one. Good. I see hands going up all over the place. Perfect. Great. Well, again, my name is John Horn. Just to give you a quick background, so for those of you that don't know much about JMH, we serve higher education. We do a couple of things, and these are the things we like people to know about us. One is that we work in this vertical, and in fact, more specifically, we do almost all of our work with continuing education or adult degree programs. That's kind of the area that we live in, and we do a couple of things with those programs. We provide online marketing services, including, of course, paid search, a lot of Google paid search management, but also marketing on Facebook, LinkedIn, Bing, email marketing, landing pages, conversion optimization, all sorts of things around online marketing for schools. And secondly, we help schools to launch non-credit certificate programs. So those are that's the background that we come from. We manage paid search campaigns both in the online marketing services as well as for our program partners with the certificate program. So we do quite a bit of this. And you can see here just some of the schools in the industry that we either have worked with or currently work with. We're really proud and feel honored to be working with some of these fantastic brands around the country. And internationally as well. So with that, I'm going to jump in to give you a little bit of background, first of all, on why these changes are coming. Why did Google decide that they needed to make some fairly dramatic changes to the targeting and some of the ad characteristics for paid search? And I want to talk about three trends that I think are behind this shift that Google is making. The first, no surprise here, devices are evolving very quickly, and the way that people are using devices is also evolving very quickly. I've got some shots of some of the Apple products, but obviously Samsung and tons of other manufacturers are producing these devices that are in some cases beginning to replace people's use of a traditional desktop. We do some research, we call it the Website Benchmarking Initiative for Continuing Education, where for about 3 years we've been collecting analytics data from some participating schools. We've got about 24 schools participating in this, and one of the interesting things that we've seen from that is that starting from when our research began about 3 years ago, the percentage of mobile users visiting websites in our industry doubled every 6 months. So it literally went from 2% of visits to 4% to 8% to 16%, and now is approaching, is somewhere around 25 or 30%, depending on schools, which school you look at. But mobile device usage is growing quickly, and Google realized, because they're in business to make money, that they need to really adapt their products to cater to that mobile audience better than their traditional ads were doing. So that's one force. The second thing is advertising online is becoming more widespread. We're seeing more and more small advertisers get involved in doing paid search advertising because it's such an effective advertising medium if you do it right. But what Google also realized is that those small advertisers were less sophisticated than the agencies or the big advertisers that had traditionally been using the product. So as more small businesses and even just smaller advertisers got involved, they needed to adapt their product to make it a little more user-friendly for those advertisers to take advantage of the full spectrum of offerings in paid search. And then the third thing that Google is facing is pressure, not only from Facebook, but also from certainly Bing or Microsoft Ad Center, as they're calling it, which advertises on Bing and Yahoo, and then also LinkedIn. So as Facebook and these other advertisers are creating more sophisticated advertising platforms for users, Google needs to stay ahead of the curve. So they're looking at how they can maintain their dominant position in the online advertising sector and compete so that Facebook and these others don't pull more advertising dollars away from Google. So all of these are kind of things that are happening, and there's one more sort of factor going on here, which is this idea of user context. Google as an organization is realizing more and more that simply working off of the search phrase that people type into that search bar is not always enough to understand what people are after when they search. As you can see here, two different people at two different locations on two different devices, 2 different times a day, are doing the exact same search. But this is not a perfect science, but you can make a pretty good estimated guess by using some of this contextual information of what device people are on, where they're at, and when they're doing their search as to what they might be after. So a search for pizza, if a person is at home and it's just before lunchtime, let's show them an ad that says, hey, Saratoga Pizza for lunch. If it's in the evening and the person's downtown, chances are they're either looking for a quick dinner for themselves, so $3 slices, or maybe they're going to get something to take home. So, and also notice on the phone ad, there's a little button that says call that this person could just click to immediately call. So this is an example of how Google is trying to better understand user context, and then they're going to try to give us the tools as advertisers to create and serve up more accurate ads based on that user intent, which in the end, of course, is in Google's business interest, because the more we advertise and the more people are clicking on the ads, the more relevant they are, the more money Google makes. So this is also kind of going on. And of course, we can try to apply this in our industry to think about how, in a university, how might this apply? And let's say you're running a degree completion program. A search for someone searching on going back to school might be a really good search for identifying someone who's a candidate for a degree completion program. However, it might also be someone searching for school supplies for their second grader who might be going back to school in August. So, or it even could be someone who's just trying to find out the date on which their undergraduate, traditional undergraduate program resumes at the local state university. So the more we can understand, again, this is not a perfect science, but the better we can kind of infer, like, is this person searching, what time of day are they searching? Are they on a mobile device or a computer? Where are they physically located? Are they in the downtown office district, or are they, in a suburb, which is likely in a home? We can maybe better target our ads and reach our target audiences a little bit better. Okay. Now, doing this kind of segmentation and understanding how to serve up different ads to different people in different places and times is fairly complex. And take an example of how we might have used to manage bids or manage advertising campaigns on paid search. Let's say you had an online program and you wanted to market this program nationally. But you also know that people in your city or your state are going to be much more likely to convert. So maybe you'd be willing to bid a little bit higher on someone doing a search for your program if they were located close to you geographically. So you might create a regional campaign that targets just your city or just your state and bid higher in that campaign than you would have on the national campaign. But then let's say also you realize that people searching on mobile devices nationally are much less likely to convert. And we know that people are not as likely to fill out a form on a mobile device. So maybe you feel like you can't advertise to people on mobile devices at the same rate. In other words, maybe you were bidding $3 per click in the national campaign, but maybe you only want to bid $2 a click for people on mobile devices. Well, you would have had to create a separate mobile campaign to do that. And then let's also say that you find that most of your conversions, most of your leads or enrollments come on weekdays. But you don't want to completely shut off your advertising on weekends. So previously, you could set your national campaign and your regional campaign to both turn off, say on Friday night, and then resume again on Monday morning, and have a fourth campaign, a weekend campaign that comes on and runs through the weekend with lower bids. So all of this was the scenario in which sophisticated advertisers or large advertisers would have been creating these segmented campaigns to try to better, spend their money where it was most effective. However, as we know, small advertisers probably don't have either the time nor the sophistication to do this sort of segmentation. It just doesn't make sense. So Google is trying to address that in the changes that they're making. So Google talks about 3 areas. As you can see here, 3 areas of change that the enhanced campaigns bring. One is this more powerful bidding, and that was what I was just talking about, is the ability to kind of adapt our bids based on context. Secondly, smarter ads, giving us the ability to do what are called ad extensions with a little bit more control than we've had in the past. And third, they say improved reporting. Really, most of these improvements that are going to be relevant to us are going to be around phone calls, better tracking of phone calls that are made as a result of paid online advertising through Google. They've got some app downloads and also some document downloads that have not been completely rolled out yet, but those may apply, the document downloads, in the context of if you want people to download a brochure or a course catalog or something like that and want to count that as a conversion. That stuff Google is talking about rolling out soon, but hasn't yet. So what I want to do is to take each of these one by one and talk about what these improvements are that they're making around the bidding, around the ads and extensions, and then a little bit of the reporting. So first of all, this is what the tabs would look like in a paid search campaign before enhanced campaigns. This is what it looks like after. When you go onto the settings tab of an enhanced campaign, you're going to get a second tier of tabs with buttons that have locations, ad schedule, and devices. And these are the 3 areas in which we can do that contextual, what are called bid adjustments, based on location, based on time of day or day of week, and based on whether that person is on a mobile device or not. So let's look at each one of those. Well, actually, first, let's talk about kind of the holistic context of this, because one of the powerful implications of this change is not only that you can make these adjustments in each of these 3 areas individually, but it actually creates a pretty sophisticated matrix of bid adjustments. As you can see here, this is just an example, and it can certainly be more complex than this or less complex than this. But you could say, look, if somebody is in my city, I'm willing to bid a little bit more for them because they're closer to my school and they're more likely to enroll in my program. And if they're on a tablet or a computer, a laptop or a desktop, I want to bid even more than I would if they were on a mobile device. So these, and you can kind of get the sense of the rest of it there. So these three different kind of dimensions of bid adjustments actually create multiplicative effects. And that's one thing you actually have to watch out for. If you add a 10% increase based on a location, a 10% increase based on a schedule, and a 10% increase based on the device that people are on, you can actually get the 10% times 10% times 10%, and you end up with a much higher bid than you started with because the bid adjustments are multiplying each other. So let's take a more specific look at one of these. So here's an example of location-based bid adjustments. So in this case, we have a program, and this is from an actual, this is from a client of ours, but we've obscured all of the particulars of the advertising. Let's say this particular client wants to advertise nationwide. It's an online program, or it's a program where people are coming, maybe an MBA program where people are coming just for particular times, like 2 weeks at a stretch. But if, for whatever reason, they feel like they can market nationally. But they also realize that particular geographies, people are going to be more likely to enroll. So let's say it's located in the Northeast, say around Rhode Island. So we could then say, look, if they're in this state, in Rhode Island, we want to make a 25% increase to our bids. So let's say we were normally bidding $4 a click. In Rhode Island, we would be bidding $5 a click, which makes it more likely that our ad is going to show and going to show in a better position on the page. It means we may be able to outbid some other advertisers when our ad is showing to someone who searches in Rhode Island. And then we've got sort of the second tier of Massachusetts and Connecticut. And then California and New York, interestingly, we don't even have a bid adjustment, but because those are such large populous states, we wanted to break out the metrics for them, and so we actually added them as a location on this tab so we could see how the ads are performing in those states compared to how they're performing nationally, to see if we needed to make a bid adjustment based on the cost per conversion or the click-through rate or things like that. Second thing, time-based bid adjustment schedule. So this is just a sort of a snippet of it. Obviously, they can be much more complex than this, but here I'm just showing you just a Sunday. So if we realize that from Sundays, from midnight to 3 a.m., maybe we've been advertising for a year, and we realize that, you know, in those wee hours of the morning, we rarely get conversions. We could decide that in that period, we're going to reduce our bid by 10%. And you can create actually a very complex schedule. You could do it hour by hour. What you see a lot of advertisers doing is saying, you know, during business hours, I'm going to have this ad adjustment from, say, 5 or 6 p.m. through, you know, maybe 10 p.m. I'm going to have this amount, and then overnight from like 10 p.m. on through like 6 a.m. the next morning, I'm going to have a different bid adjustment. So you can bid based on the time of day, but as you can see, you can also then get down granularly to the actual day of the week. Okay. By the way, I forgot to mention earlier, but as I'm going through this, you should see a spot where you can put in questions. And I'm going to hold those questions until the end, but if you have a question and want to type it into that question box as we're going through this webinar, feel free to go ahead and add those questions in there, and I can come back to any of these slides, and I'll try to get to as many of your questions as I can at the end of the session. So moving on from the time-based bid adjustments, we can talk about mobile. Now this is one of the more controversial areas of the Google Enhanced campaigns. In fact, I think that if Google had rolled out everything except mobile adjustments, they would have pleased probably 98, 99% of the people out there. They got a huge backlash from this particular change from the advertising population, and have already made a couple of adjustments to try to appease some of the concern. So, one of the big concerns comes from the fact that mobile device advertising is now automatically included in all campaigns. Now, what you can do is you can set your mobile bid adjustment to -100%, which effectively turns off your mobile advertising. And I think a lot of the initial reactions from people came from the fact they didn't understand that. So you can effectively turn off mobile device advertising by setting the bid adjustment to -100%. But the part that people were frustrated with and continue to, if you read articles about this, is the fact that now tablet advertising, so people using any sort of a tablet device, a Kindle Fire or an iPad, things like that, are treated the same as if they're on a desktop or laptop computer. So you see that I have a bid adjustment here for mobile devices, and we do not have one for tablets, and that's because Google will not allow you to. Under this new enhanced campaigns, you cannot adjust your bids for the tablets, only for mobile devices. And because people know that tablets, people's actions on tablets, or their likelihood to fill out a form, say on your website, or enroll in a course on your website, is probably different if they're on a tablet than if they're on a computer with a full keyboard. And that's one of the reasons why people were upset and continue to be upset, is because we can no longer control that. So keep in mind that if you're using enhanced campaigns, your ads will show with the same bid amount for someone who is on a tablet as it will for someone on a computer. Okay. And this is, and mobile adjustments are the only area out of all these enhanced campaigns that you have to take some kind of action as you're upgrading your campaign. So if you have existing paid search campaigns and you're upgrading them to enhanced campaigns, this is what Google is going to ask you as you do that upgrade. It's going to ask, how would you like to adjust your mobile bids? And they will make a suggestion. You can see in this case, it says, based on bids from other advertisers, to decrease my bid by 20%. But they default it to the same bid. We have actually found, by looking at the performance of people on mobile devices versus not, for most of our clients, we have made the decision to decrease bids by somewhere between 25 and 50%. And I would say, unless you are using some call-based ads, in other words, if you have that click-to-call button, you may see your mobile advertising perform pretty well. If not, and you're trying to get people to convert, we typically find that on mobile devices, since they're so much less likely to fill out a form, that we need to bid a lot lower, or else we're just wasting money on those mobile ads that people are clicking on but then not taking a further action. So we typically decrease it by somewhere between 25 and 50%. But of course, you need to look at your own data and make that decision for yourself. So to summarize 5 important changes in this area of enhanced campaigns. 1, your campaigns are always going to be set to run across all devices now. Before, you had the option to choose whether you wanted to advertise on desktops, tablets, mobile devices, etc. Now you're going to be running on all devices, but you can adjust your bids on those devices. 2, tablet bids are going to be treated exactly the same as laptop or desktop bids. 3, you now get to control how your mobile bids are adjusted. Previously, I didn't go into this, but under the old model, Google used an algorithm to determine, based on what it thought the conversion rate would be for mobile devices, to adjust your bid kind of proportional to what its algorithm said. Now you get to control that. So if you think, or you know, that mobile visitors are worth half as much to you as a visitor on a full computer, set your mobile bid to -50%. You don't have to rely on Google to try to make that judgment for you. 4th, you can adjust those mobile bids at the campaign level, which we saw, but also, and this was one of Google's responses, this was kind of an appeasement that Google went to for people who were really upset about mobile bidding being included in all campaigns. Google allows you to adjust those mobile bids even down at the ad group level. So if you have particular searches in particular ad groups within paid search campaigns that do pretty well on mobile devices, you can have those bids be higher than some others. Okay. And then fifth, your time and location bids, keep in mind, can only be adjusted at the campaign level, but you have a lot of control over the time and location. You can, with location, we in fact often create sort of concentric areas of bid where maybe if you're located, say, in a downtown of a major city, you might bid the highest for people within 20 miles of that location, then lower your bid a little bit for people within 50 miles, and then lower your bid a little bit more for people that are in your state but maybe outside the 50-mile radius. So you can really get some specific location bids, and we talked about the time-based or schedule-based bids being very granular. So let's then spend a few minutes talking about the ads and changes and improvements that Google has made in the actual ads that we're able to show to searchers. And there's two kind of areas that I think are particularly relevant to our industry. One of these are what are called site link extensions, and then the second one are call extensions for phone calls. Let's start by talking about what are site links. So if you've never heard of site links, you've probably seen them, but maybe didn't know where they came from, or maybe know how to turn them on in your own paid search campaigns. Here's an example of a search. So I did a search on South Carolina Six Sigma certificate, and you can see ad comes up. It's one of our clients, USC Six Sigma certificate. But if you look toward just underneath the main part of that ad, you'll see these four sort of subtext items that are also part of the ad. These are called site links. You get to create those. You don't have to, and it's not automatic, but you have the ability in all paid search campaigns to go in and create those. And we have for a while been able to add these into our campaigns. So this is not something new that Google is doing, but the way in which we do it is changed quite a bit. So let's look at that. So this is a screenshot of an area where we might be editing the particular site links in our campaigns. And if you're looking for this, the tab, if you're looking in your paid search campaign, there's a tab, I believe it's called Ad Extensions, something like that. And then under there, you'll have a variety of different ad extensions, and one of them are called site links. And so once I'm in editing the site links for my campaign, this is what it looks like. And the big change, the big initial change that they made in this is that we can now create individual site links, add them into our campaign, and Google will cycle through and test out various combinations of these site links to see which perform better. So you can see here I have 6. I've blurred out the name of the school here, but I've got 6 different site links, and so each one of those, Google will start testing those site links along with my ad to see which of them ends up producing a better click-through rate. Previously, you got to create these site links, but they were all in one bundle. In other words, you might create 4 or 6 site links, but they were all kind of locked together, and you couldn't edit them individually, nor could you see this. You would not be able to see the specific performance metrics of each of those site links. So now, each site link that I create, I'm going to be able to see what was the click-through rate of the ad while that site link was on the page. What was how many conversions did I get from an ad that had that site link in it, and what was the cost per conversion and so forth. So we get much more granular data on how well these site links perform. And by the way, if you're wondering, is this really relevant? How important are these? We see an increase in click-through rates of anywhere from around 20 to 40% when we use site links with ads. So in other words, this is going to improve your click-through rate by probably around 1/3 if you have these in your ad. And that's significant because a higher click-through rate also means your ad is going to start showing up in higher positions on the page, or you can lower your bids a little bit and not spend as much money. So for us, creating these kind of individual site links is really a no-brainer. It's something that every paid search campaign should have. Now, not only have they given us this more granular sort of view of these site links, but they've also given us some more features for each individual site link. And here's a couple things that I'm really excited about with this. First of all, you can target your site links specifically to mobile devices. So if you had a site link that, for example, you wanted to encourage people to call or to visit your location, or for maps or directions, something like that, you might only want to show that for people, or prefer to show that to people who are searching on a mobile device. Okay? And so we now have this checkbox, she's circled in red up there, where I can specify this particular site link is, I prefer, you don't get, it's not an absolute, but I prefer that Google shows this site link when a person is searching on a mobile device. And that will give that site link, compared to your other, say, 5 or 6 in that campaign, it will give that one preferential treatment and be more likely to show it. You can also attach a little description to each site link, but down at the bottom, this is something that I think is really exciting, particularly if you have event-based marketing that you do. And I'll give you an example of this. Let's say, right here, you had an information session that was happening on July 23rd. We have found that when we put dates in our paid search ads, they perform a lot better. When people see a date, it's more relevant, it's more timely. We see much better click-through rates when we put a date in there. The problem with putting dates in there is that you have to remember to go back and to take that ad out, or pause it or delete it once that date passes. Well, what we can now do, we still can't address it in the actual ad itself, but in the site link, you can create a site link that has a date in it, like July 23rd, free information session. And then you can set a start and an end date on which that site link will appear. So in this case, it started on March 6th, and it will end at midnight on July 23rd. That site link will stop displaying. And you could set it for July 22nd if you wanted, but essentially you get to control when the site link stops displaying. You also have the option to schedule the site link. So maybe you want a site link that encourages people to call you and talk to, say, a recruitment representative or an admissions person or a program manager in your department, but you only want to encourage people to do that while that person is at work. So you could set up a custom schedule that says, show this site link that says, talk to the program manager or talk to a recruitment agent, and have it show between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. if that's the time of day in which someone is going to be there to answer the phone. So you can adjust what site links are going to appear for people based on when that person is doing their search. So these are some pretty big improvements to allow us to make more contextual and smarter sort of ads and ad content appear for searchers. And I got one more thing for you with site links, ad group specific site links. So ad groups, of course, within each campaign, you can create kind of a set of ad groups. And let's take a Six Sigma program, which I have here as an example. Maybe we offer a green belt certificate and a black belt certificate in Six Sigma. Well, people that are searching on things like Six Sigma green belt, we might want to show them one set of site links. If someone does a search on Six Sigma black belt, that triggers an ad in this other ad group, and we're going to show them that set of site links. So up until now, you could only create site links at the campaign level. We can now create site links that are specific to each individual ad group, which allows us to get a little bit more specific with the messaging that we put out there with those site links based on the search that people are doing. For example, another maybe someone's doing a search on something. I don't know, let's take paralegals, another program that we work with a lot. If someone does a search on something like what is a paralegal, you might want to give them a site link that says find out more about paralegals. Whereas if someone is doing a search that says paralegal certificate program, maybe you want to give them a site link that says, learn more about our certificate, right? So you can kind of contextually give them different messages based on what they're searching on within the same campaign. So those were the site link improvements that Google has made. Now we'll talk about the call extension improvements. I find that most people doing paid search are not using call extensions at all, or if they are, it's at a very rudimentary level. this improvement that Google is making gives us a little bit more control over the call extensions themselves, but even more control over the reporting. We'll be able to see much better about how effective having these call extensions are for generating leads or generating at least phone calls that are relevant. So we can now, in Google AdWords, we can now create a conversion. Okay, and a conversion historically has been someone filling out a form or visiting a particular page within the site, something like that. Now we say, I want this to be treated as a conversion for cost per conversion metrics if this person makes a phone call. But as you can see in the sort of lower right-hand screenshot, you can be even more specific than that. You can have a Google forwarding phone number that allows you to sort of track how many people have called that. And then you can also only count the calls. You see the checkbox there on that. If that phone call lasts longer than X number of seconds. So maybe you say, you know, this phone call needs to be at least 3 minutes long before I consider it a valid or useful call. So you can set that to 180 seconds. And you can also check the box that says device preference mobile to say, you know, I want to do this only if a person is searching on their mobile phone. And you can do the same sort of start and end dates and scheduling for this so that you could have the phone conversion and all of that only show up during particular periods of the day or particular days of the week. So Google now lets us track the phone calls made from your ads as a conversion, lets you use your Google forwarding number or your own phone number. Of course, you won't get the reports if they're going to just click and call your own phone number. And you can be more granular in what kind of phone calls you consider a meaningful phone call by setting a number of seconds. So I thought I would at the end of this, those are the major upgrades. So those are the major improvements to enhanced campaigns. There are a few other sort of minor things and a few areas that are more relevant to people that are doing e-commerce or small businesses with local sort of sites. But I think for our industry, those are the things that we have seen that we feel like are pretty significant. I thought I would wrap up before we jump to questions with a few observations or recommendations that we've found in doing upgrades. So we've probably now upgraded several dozen campaigns to enhanced campaigns. And here are some of the things that we've learned. One, we do not trust Google's recommended mobile bid adjustment. Not to be suspicious, but Google is in this to make money. Google's a business, and they want you to bid as much as possible. We have, in general, opted to set our mobile bids a bit lower than what Google recommended, because we find that mobile traffic generally does not convert nearly as well as people searching on a computer. So don't trust what Google says just because they say this is based on us looking at lots of other advertisers. Secondly, put those enhanced site links in every campaign that you have. They improve your click-through rate, which means lower bids and better ad position. Third, get down to the ad group level with your site links and use time-based site links. That time-based site links might be my most favorite aspect of enhanced campaigns, being able to set messages that appear with my ad, but only between certain dates. Adjust your bid strategy geographically. So think about where you want to raise your bids and where you want to lower your bids in the area that you're marketing to, and you can really improve your ROI from this online advertising by focusing your highest bids in the area where people are most likely to become students. Fifth, if you're going to do mobile ads, if you're going to advertise on mobile devices, and Google's strongly encouraging us to do so, use the call tracking and use and create kind of mobile preferred site links and do everything that you can to improve the performance of your ads on mobile devices. They are becoming such a large percentage of the searches that are out there that we can no longer just ignore them or not serve ads to them. And that's kind of the message that Google's sending by including mobile ads in all of these campaigns. We need to think about them, but we have to do it in a smart way. It's not enough just to show the same ad to someone on a smartphone as to someone who's searching on a laptop. You really need to think about what they're trying to do and use the features that Google's giving you to be smarter about your advertising to that audience. And then lastly, adjust those bids based on a day of week and time of day. Google, there's a tab on each campaign that says dimensions, and under that dimensions tab, you can actually segment the performance of your campaign by day of the week or by hour of the day, and that's a great place to get started to better understand which days of the week are people most likely to click on your ads, and if you're tracking conversions, when are they most likely to convert either into a lead or maybe they're registering for maybe an open enrollment course directly through your website. But you can see the time of day and the day of week as to how your campaign performs across different times in your campaigns right now. It's on that Dimensions tab. So these are 6 things that that are kind of that you can take advantage of in these campaigns once you've upgraded to enhanced campaigns or as you're creating new campaigns that are enhanced campaigns. So with that, I want to take just a minute before I answer questions and just speak to the fact that if we're not already working with you and this is an area that you are interested in doing more online marketing or would like to have an organization like ours work with you on the online marketing, we are always looking for new partners. We'd love to talk with you. This is kind of the scope of what we typically help our school clients with. Everything from the paid social, Facebook and LinkedIn, display advertising, which by the way has become much more nuanced and strategic with some of the improvements Google is making on the Google Display Network than the old school banner ads. You can really target people in some interesting ways now on display. And of course, paid search, both on Google and on Microsoft Ad Center, which is Bing and Yahoo. We help schools develop the strategies around online marketing, build out, develop the campaigns across all these platforms or the relevant platforms, launch, and then manage and optimize those campaigns. And of course, everything that JMH does, if you know much about our organization, we are huge on metrics and measurement and making data-based decisions. So we do everything that we can to measure not only clicks and those kind of metrics, but also which of those clicks are turning into leads for you or turning into students for you, and providing relevant reports. We typically do monthly reports kind of showing the performance across these. So if you're interested, we would love to talk to you. We'll be sending out, as I said, a link to this recorded webinar in the next few days. You can either reply to that or reach out to us in any other way that you'd like to if you're interested in talking to us about our online marketing management. So on that, I'm going to see if we have any questions. Let's see. And then if you've got a question, there's plenty of time to add in some others here if you have any other specific things. Let's see. Oh, I do have a question. Came in from Megan Anderson asks, for those that manage campaigns for our institutions, would you suggest becoming individually qualified with Google AdWords via their certification process? I think, first of all, I'll say I am a Google AdWords certified. I've become certified individually, and our organization is an AdWords partner organization. So take it with a grain of salt that I am, and I think it's valuable, certainly. I think individually, it's certainly a great career step to have, to be able to say, look, I'm Google certified. The only thing you really have to do to become Google certified, you have to pass 2 certification exams. These are not lightweight exams. They're pretty significant. They take maybe anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. They ask really tough, deep questions about the use of Google AdWords for marketing. But I think there's a lot of value in it. I don't know how much internal institutional value it would provide. Certainly, many of the people that are Google AdWords certified are agencies or individuals like us that are helping other organizations do it, and it's a credential to be able to say, hey, I really know what I'm talking about. But I think that also applies internally to your organization to be able to say, look, I'm valuable. Not only am I kind of fiddling around with this stuff, but I'm actually certified. And I think in the world of education, since there aren't many people that have degrees in anything related to online marketing, and few of us even with marketing degrees in general, having these kind of certifications in an industry that values credentials is always useful. Let's see. Any other questions? That was the only question that I have gotten so far from anyone. I'll give you just another few, another minute or two, see if anyone else has a question they would like to ask. Okay. Well, it is 2:45. I think. Thoughts. A quick question came in. Thoughts on Google remarketing. I have lots of thoughts on Google remarketing. It's from Ron Davis. Many thoughts. First of all, I will say Google is in the process of rolling out some Google remarketing for paid search, which is a whole different animal than what most people think of with remarketing, which is display. We use Google remarketing quite a bit. Here's how it works on display. The idea is, let's say someone visits your website. Then that person doesn't convert. They're not a student. They leave your website. As they continue on their merry way over the next few hours, days, even weeks, you can decide that you want to show them an ad as they browse other sites that are part of the Google Display Network. You want to continue to show them your ad to try to bring them back to your website and maybe get them to convert. We've seen some good results from this. As I said, we've done this, and the thing you have to be careful about with remarketing is you can creep people out. And you may have had this experience where you just, everywhere you go online, you're seeing the same organization's ad, and it feels a little bit like they're stalking you. Now, Google has some tools in the settings where you can control that. You can say, I don't want to show this ad to someone more than X number of times within this period. And so I think you certainly want to turn that on so you're not seen as stalking a person. But we've seen really good conversion rates with remarketing. If that person was on your website, chances are pretty good that they have an interest in what you're offering. So as we all know, the old kind of saying in marketing is you got to show, people have to see something 7 times or so before it kind of clicks, before it works. So I think remarketing is a good idea, and I haven't yet played with the search remarketing, which is being able to kind of show search ads to people based on their past behavior. But I'm looking forward to that when it's fully rolled out. Okay, well, it's 2:48, so I'm going to, now suddenly I've got lots of questions coming in. Let me see if I can address just a couple more of these questions. Let's see. Does Google share the groups? Anissa asked, does Google share the sites that are part of remarketing? Do you buy a mix of sites or choose them? With the Google, let me think about it. With Google Display ad remarketing, I believe that you can see the sites on which your ads are displaying, and you can set your you can set what are called manual placements to say, I only want the ads to show on these sites. Chances are that's not going to get you very many impressions because it's tough to predict which sites the people that had been on your site are going to be visiting that are part of the display network, but you can see where your ads are displaying, absolutely, and how many people are clicking on the ads from those various sites where your remarketing ads appear. And then a question from Danielle, do ad extensions work on the display network? That's a great question. I don't believe that they do. I haven't tested that specifically, but on the display network, you can use your text-based ads, like the same paid search ads on the display network, but to my knowledge, based on the space restrictions of those ads, I don't believe that the site links are able to be displayed on the display network as of this point. But that's a very good question. And a question from John about, do you think anonymous Google sites are double-click? I think what John's asking about is anonymous. Maybe this is related to Google Analytics and seeing kind of which sites, or Google Analytics or on the Google Display Network. You'll often see a lot of sites that are not explained. In other words, you don't know which site your ads were appearing on. And most of those, in fact, are from users who have opted not to allow Google to track their behavior. So anybody who's using Google, you have the option to say, yes, I want this. Yes, I want this I'm going to allow Google to record my behavior anonymously and use that to report back to advertisers. Or you can say, no, I don't want Google to be able to track anything about me and share that with any advertisers. Most of those anonymous reports are coming from people who have specifically said, no, I don't want Google to use my data, even in aggregate, to allow marketers to better understand and reach me. That's where most of those anonymous impressions and clicks are coming from. And then thoughts on cost CPM versus CPC. Cost per thousand, cost CPM, it means, am I going to bid for every 1,000 times that my ads display, or am I going to bid only when people click on my ads? And that's a great question. I'll address that real quickly and then we'll wrap up. We typically only do CPM bidding or bid on the impressions if we're doing pure awareness marketing. If a client says to us, I've got money to burn, which I know is the case with everybody who's on this webinar, money to burn. I've got all this cash and we've got to spend it because it's in my budget within this many months. And we also really want to build awareness for our program. We just want to get the message out, almost like putting out billboards and bus wraps and all that sort of thing. If somebody says to us, that's our goal, is just to get our name out there, we will then look at CPM bidding, especially on the display network and especially on Facebook and LinkedIn. CPM is harder to do on paid search because someone actually has to be searching on the term that you're bidding on to get your ad to display. And in those cases, it's usually better to pay based on the click. But for pure awareness marketing, we do sometimes use CPM just to spend money and to kind of push out a big awareness marketing campaign. Okay, guys. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I hope this was useful for you. I hope you got some good relevant tips and information as you go about upgrading your campaigns. Again, the deadline, July 22nd, is the date on which Google says they are going to begin forcibly upgrading the paid search campaign. So my advice is do it before then. If you have questions or are really concerned about upgrading your campaigns, you are welcome to reach out to us. I'm happy to, take a look at your campaign or give you some just general advice to make you feel more comfortable about doing this upgrade. But as I said, we've done this for several dozen campaigns. It's not that difficult. It's actually a pretty quick process. It takes maybe 5 minutes to upgrade a campaign. And I recommend that you all do and take advantage of all of these new features that Google's giving us. Thank you again for attending. Hope this was helpful. Best of luck with your advertising. Please let us know if we can help in any way. Have a great day.